Hello and welcome to another Fallout 4 video. Now that dust is finally settled about the trailer, I would like to take a more in-depth look with all the theories I have now and the theories that my friends have come up with as well. I've broken these theories down into three sections. Number one is new stuff, theories that we haven't already discussed and didn't find in the original video. Number two is the expanded section. These are theories we have already spoken about and have found further evidence for them, or have generally just expanded upon the ideas we have for those theories. Number three is the speculation section. These are theories that have little to no evidence backing them, but are quite interesting and might be possibilities, and until they're proven otherwise, they're still a viable option within the game as we know it currently. So, the new stuff. The Institute experiments from the original video that I sort of just went on as, it's an experiment, we don't really know much about them. But combining that with the Fallout 3 lore, which I was lacking in at the time of making the original video, some of these experiments that I saw in the original video are most likely failed androids if they're experiments from the Institute, as the androids are created by the Institute and they're rather advanced, and as I said already, this would fit with my previous theory as these androids, these things, possibly being hunted because of the nighttime section with the airship and the vertibird flying over the sea. They do look like they're hunting for something, and it would make sense that they're hunting the failed androids, as in Fallout 3 when we first met the Institute and the Railway, the Institute was looking for a malfunctioning android, as they put it, and the Railway was trying to save them, so it would make sense that the Institute itself, or maybe the bureau that they have within the Commonwealth Police Force, would be searching for these failed androids or whatever they are within the city. If they are within the city, but obviously we don't know entirely currently. There is still the possibility they could be mutants. The Fallout wiki is saying that they're feral ghouls, but I kind of doubt that with how ghouls have looked in the previous games. Why would they suddenly just completely change the look of ghouls? I know this is a new game, but the way ghouls look has been the same thing in the previous two games, and that is so much the way we see ghouls. Why would they just completely flip it on its head and change what they look like entirely? So I doubt that. But moving on to the next new theory that we have is the super mutants. Looking back at the footage and the keen eyes of one of the three Connors, I know I was shown the obvious super mutants, which I completely bypassed the emotional scan through, just passing them off as people in power armor. But looking back and the 4K screenshots, I think it's the high quality screenshots that Bethesda gave out afterwards, you can clearly see that they are super mutants. They are not people in power armor at all. And also, if you look in the image, you can see there's sort of spikes, almost warped metal-esque stuff, and the capture cages, which the super mutants have always been fond of. Now moving on to the expanded section. The dog, I originally had the opinion that the dog came from the time we entered the game, mainly. I did speak about the possibility the dog came before the war, but looking back at the trailer, there are a few things in the sort of house section that point towards this dog possibly being from before the bombs dropped or before the Great War. I think it's the same thing now. It's possible it is from before the war. As looking back at the trailer, I picked up a few things. There is a photo next to the TV, the start of the trailer, and there is in the photo, there is a black shape, which kind of resembles a dog, at least in my opinion. And there's also the dog balls later on in the trailer, and also the way that the dog interacts with the child's, it's not a toy, but the thing that spins around top of the cradle. How he interacts with that, it seems like he has some sort of emotional connection, and the original house owners having a dog suggests and sort of points more towards the theory one of my friends had of either the dog was cryogenically frozen as well as the main player, or that Vault 111 is some sort of ark, possibly storing more than one species, whereas most of the other arcs generally just had humans in them, apart from that one that had a panther. That's the thing. Most of the vaults just have people, so it's possible this is some sort of vault that's supposed to contain several different species of animals, although we didn't see many of them going up the hill towards the vault, so it's possible the dog was just an experiment for the cryogenic freezing, and so, they offered up their dog to go and test it, not realizing it was a test. They just thought the dog would be safe. As looking back over the documents that were leaked before the game, the main player is saying that he's worried for his family. So if he's worried for his family, and they needed someone to test cryogenic freezing on, and he wanted to protect his dog, possibly sending his dog there to be cryogenically frozen makes some sort of sense. But moving on, the second expanded point is the Pipboy. As I mentioned in the previous video, the Pipboy looks very different in comparison with the 3000 model that we've seen in the last two games. This could be for many reasons. It's possible it's an older model, as the colour scheme would fit the times. Alternatively, this could be a Pipboy created by the Commonwealth, which would explain why it looks so different from what we've seen everywhere else in the Wasteland in the previous two games. It's always been that sort of Pip-Boy 3000. I think in the games before that it was the Pip-Boy 2500, if I'm not mistaken. That was sort of a different style on the same thing. But both of them were very sort of worn down, very bulky, almost, I don't want to say military-esque, but kind of that sort of thing. Whereas this one looks a lot more lighter and looks more like something you could have had at the time, almost. Now, moving on to the armor, which was another thing which I mentioned in the previous video. Now, there hasn't been much development upon this idea. However, there has been some slight modifications upon possibly how it would work. The original idea was that you'd repair armor by replacing different parts of it. So, say your armor gets damaged over time, and you step on a mine or something, it blows up your leg, so your leg's crippled, and so then you'd need to repair your leg armor. And you do this by piecing it together with another set of armor, like you have done in the previous games, where it's a similar set of armor, you repair them together, and then you get a better armor set from it. But now, with how we've seen the power armor being sort of the legs missing and the arms missing, there was a news theory that came out of this, which was the idea that possibly over time your armor may be damaged and parts will sort of fall off of it. So there is a few different sort of mainly Asian games, but they take it down a very weird route of your armor gets damaged while you're in combat, and then you need to repair that armor with, obviously with Fallout would be with another similar armor set, and so you'd end up with an armor set that looks more pieced together and more sort of makeshift than what we've seen previously. Well, but some of the armor sets already do look makeshift, but they'd be more makeshift as it's your own custom sets that you're putting together rather than the preset ones already in the game, with some slight modifications. Finally, we move on to the speculation section. Now, the major one of this section, and currently the only one, is something I could actually see happening in the game, and that's making the player take a side between two factions that we already know exist within the Commonwealth, which are the Railway and the Institute. Because, if you know, back in Fallout 3, there was one quest involving both of these factions, in which you had to pick a side by either handing over an android to the Institute or protecting them for the Railway. The Institute themselves have the ability to create highly advanced androids with their own AI. But these androids have a tendency to malfunction, as the Institute likes to put it, whereas in reality these androids are essentially gaining some sort of sentience, I suppose. They're becoming their own person. Almost weird wording, I don't really know how to word it properly. But the Railway wants to protect these androids rather than the Institute wants to enslave them and have them do tasks for them, sort of thing, whereas the Railway wants them to become their own people, almost become normal humans, I suppose, and they do this by giving them facial reconstruction and sort of giving them an imprinted memory rather than their actual one. So, looking at the evidence, I believe the player may have to pick a side between these two factions, and this is possibly due to the Railway's intentions, as they may also be working with the Brotherhood of Steel, as the Railway are essentially trying to help the people. They're trying to stop enslavement, which is what the Institute do to the androids, and they're generally trying to help people, which is what a lot of the Brotherhood of a section of the Brotherhood of Steel try to do. So it makes sense for them to be working together, and I think that'd be really cool if they were working together, because it would balance out the sort of enhanced technology you get for working with the Institute with the Brotherhood of Steel gear you'd get for working with the Railway, maybe, as to sort of not make one faction be like the one that every player goes to because they have all the best gear. But anyway, before I go, I'd like to give a great big round of applause to the guys over at the Pre-War Hub for discovering the real-world locations of all the locations shown within the trailer: Vault 101, the town around it, the strange building I showed you a picture of earlier in the video, with the ghouls and the possible failed androids. The building I circled there, that's the Institute base, which they discovered within the trailer because they triangulated the position judging by where it was in different screenshots within the trailer, and that building sits directly on top of the MIT, which is the real-world location where the Institute is based. And so they figured that out. They also figured out the map size for Fallout 4, possibly, which is 30 square miles. And if you want to listen to more in-depth version and them explain it properly and walk you through exactly how all this works, just make sure to go over there, have a look at their stuff. They're amazing. And also, if you haven't already, check out the original trailer theories video I did, so you know exactly what I'm talking about in this video, which is probably a good idea. And then, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Goodbye.